So welcome everyone. It's so good to be here again. This last week in Southwest Colorado, we received like 6+ feet of snow. So I got really behind in my work and answering the questions. So forgive me if I don't get to your questions tonight. It's just been a pretty chaotic week, but let me just start off and see if I have a couple announcements here. One, I want to thank everyone for the donations and generously supporting the satsang. It's important that we support this, to be a part of this community and to share in the generosity of spirit. It's important that we have, a little bit of financial support to pay for the technology and help keep this broadcast going. People get to hear it from all over the world. And so for those of you who did send money, and thank you so much, because you're not just helping me, you're helping many of your brothers and sisters within the Sangha community. A big thanks to Shauna, Butch, Andrea, Ivy, Christopher, and there's a couple more. Sometimes people offer donations from their business account, and I'm not always sure who that is. So thank you also. I want to remind everyone, I recently started an online meditation group. It's Wednesday night at 7 p.m. And the details for joining are on my website, craigholiday.com. And we had a really wonderful meeting the other night. And, we come together, we sit for an hour, and I guide the meditation. And oftentimes what happens is there's this transmission that comes down and blesses all of us who are present. And so it's just wonderful to be able to meet in this way. And I get to feel into the community because I normally have you connect with your video on, and so I can see you and feel into your presence intuitively and offer guidance. So it's another way of connecting and deepening on the path. When I was with my teacher, every Wednesday night we would sit together for 3 hours, and every Sunday morning for 3 hours. And literally it was every Wednesday. My teacher, he was very serious, and we couldn't say like, oh, I just don't feel like coming. He said, look, if you're going to study with me, you come every time. Like, that's the deal. And what it did is it just helped develop this spiritual backbone and this absolute presence of strength. All of us, or I should say most of us here in the Western world, we're householders. And it's nice when you can commit fully to the Dharma, when there's just this guiding light, this unshakable resolution to showing up to practice. It can be so helpful to have this type of commitment on the path. So many of us who don't have a formal teacher and who aren't a part of a group or a Sangha, we can just kind of come and go. And what often happens is our mind, our egoic nature just begins to take over. And each time when we would come together with my teachers, right away we would call upon this grace. We would call upon our higher mind. I would start to feel the descent of grace, simply, as I was beginning to drive up to my teacher's house. I started to train my consciousness at every Wednesday around, 6:15, I would head in the direction of his house, and I would just start to feel this grace, this light, this divinity pouring into me. And it was such a gift. And then when I got to his home and, hiked up the side of the mountain to the temple that we had built, you would feel just this stream of light just pouring into the temple. And it was literally like a pillar, a pillar that we would, we'd all call upon, this pillar of light. we'd call upon this truth to lead us and guide us, even when we weren't meeting together. I had this funny experience with my teacher. When I first met him, he had this like barren piece of property on a hillside. His house was literally an old barn that had been converted into a home. And, we built just gardens and, retreat homes and all kinds of stuff all over the property. So many other barns and tool sheds and this and that. But his property was on like the side of a hill. And so there was this like barren piece of land where his home was and where we made gardens. But then you'd hike up the hillside and, we were walking together in the woods once. And my teacher, David, he looked at me. We came to just like a little clearing in the woods. It was actually like this shale clearing, where nothing could grow. And he said, the mother asked me to build a temple here. And I looked at him and I looked at, the hike that, that took us up this hillside. I said, David, that's wonderful, but why don't we build the temple down there, down by the house where there's a road where it's flat? And he said, no, this is where the mother told me to build it. And, I knew how to build things at that time, and I knew that this was a really bad building site. It was inaccessible. We'd have to carry all the materials by hand through the woods. We'd have to first make a trail. We'd have to bring electric up there. And the ground, to dig in was just pure shale. And so there's like no real digging in it. And he said, no, this is where the mother said. I thought, okay, oh boy, this is going to be a project. And so, it took us about 2 or 3 years. And we started off, basically, I had to carry like 100-pound jackhammer, through the woods, up this hill. To dig the holes. For the piers for the foundation. And it was just a grueling process. But, what he said was, he said, the mother promised me that this temple, would have a pillar of light right in the center. I was young. I was like, oh yeah, sure. That sounds great, And we did this funny thing, after we spent a couple of years building it, and before we were finished, we just had the framing up. So we had the roof and the walls and this and that. And he said, and we did it was like a 4-sided roof. And at the top, at the peak, we did this, it was like a pyramid skylight. So the sun could kind of shine in, from above. And he told me one day, he said, Craig, come stand here in the center. And as soon as I stood there in the center, I felt I had this very interesting experience. I actually felt this light come up from below. This presence come up from below and literally grab a hold of my shins. It was very powerful and dramatic. And then simultaneously, there was this light that came down from heaven. And it actually took my breath away. I thought, oh, he's not kidding here. There literally was a pillar of light. Literally. And so when we were on retreat, oftentimes, he would have each of us just stand in the pillar, and you would feel this tremendous transmission. would make your mind completely blank and empty. You'd feel this incredible force literally coming up from the earth. It had both an ascending and descending light. Now, Sri Aurobindo taught about these two forces. The ascending light is like Mother Earth waking up, evolution itself waking up. That there's literally light in the core of our being. For most of us, it's in a seed form. It hasn't been awoken yet. And then, of course, most of us are familiar with this heavenly light that comes down from above. And it was, it was just incredible. Because this divine presence, it became a pillar for us on the path. It wasn't something we had to manufacture. We even had, people who would come for the first time who would be skeptical, and we'd say, "Oh, go stand in the center. What do you feel?" And they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, it's almost like getting a shock." And it was very interesting too, because it was just like this, 2x2 section right in the center, where if you stood there, you would be filled, and you'd be filled to the point of it being overwhelming. And so it was quite wonderful. I guess what got me onto this topic is how important it is, to have a beacon of light, a pillar of light. Whether that's the Dharma, or whether that's a great book or teaching, great spiritual text that you're reading and studying and it is true in your heart. Whether that's a connection with your teacher or Sangha, or I like to cross all the T's and dot all the I's. So I like to have all of them. A great teacher, great Sangha, great community, great scripture to study. Because as householders, it's very easy to get lost on the path. Incredibly easy. If I look at, my last year here in Southwest Colorado, we had tremendous forest fires this summer. With climate change, our forest really been drying out. And then we had this huge swing this winter, where we've just been this completely dumped on with moisture, the most moisture we've had in 10 or 15 years. So we had the driest summer literally ever. And then come wintertime, where it snows six feet of snow in a week, and you go up the mountain that I live on a little bit more, and they got 8 feet of snow. And so we've been constantly shoveling. Yesterday, my heater broke. And so I was, spent the day shoveling the roof, working on the heater. And today, I was digging one of the cars out of the driveway, because it's just covered in snow. Like you can't even see the car. It's just completely covered. And, I come to find that, I tried to get it to drive, and I realized, oh, it has a flat tire. And having a flat tire in 6 feet of snow is no fun. And so, I went through 2 jacks, which both broke today, in the snow. So when you're like trying to work on a car in the snow and 2 jacks break, go to the store and get another one. I finally got the car, the Jeep jacked up enough to pull the tire off and then take it to town and get it patched. And then I had to dig it out, more just to put the tire back on. And so, life can be hard. Life can be difficult. Life can be confusing. One of the things that can happen on the path is just easy to get lost in your mind. It's so easy to get lost in the mind. So easy to get lost in busyness or the weather or whatever it is that's happening. And right now I'm reading a book on, how to be a better parent. And I have a little girl, and she's like really tough. She looks super cute, but she's tough. And so I'm, trying to get myself more educated on being a better parent and speaking in a way that the two of us can communicate better. And in the book, it's referencing all this brain science, and it's speaking about, all of us, we have basically two brains. We have like a lower animal mind, and then we have a higher rational mind. Aurobindo, he spent a great deal of his time speaking about this. We literally have, an amygdala, if I can say that word correctly, I'm sorry. The lower, right at the base of the spine. I'm sorry, the base of the skull. And that's like the reptilian brain. And we have the fight or flight response. And then, up here we have the prefrontal cortex, the higher mind, where do critical thinking. And, if you get good at it, you can become very rational and also have that kind of beginning stage of mindfulness, like the kind of mindfulness they teach at community centers, where they're asking you just to step back from your thoughts a little bit. What Aurobindo also spoke about is this higher mind. And so stepping first out of the animal mind into the human mind, the rational mind, and stepping out of the rational mind, after you've developed a sense of mastery in the rational mind, then stepping into the divine mind, where you're allowing yourself to be led, allowing yourself to be guided by something greater. So when I was with my teacher, and we were walking through the woods, I probably had some level of alertness, when we walk through the woods, especially where we were walking, we'll find piles of vertebrae. And so, we live in mountain lion country. And so, sometimes it's deer vertebrae, sometimes it's elk vertebrae. And so, you might just have an animal mind that comes forward that's just kind of alert, and just like noticing, noticing when you see a pile of bones, hair might kind of stand up on the back of your neck. But as we walked further, up to the side of the temple, I stepped into my rational mind and I said, David, this is not a good place to build a temple. We don't have access. We'd have to carry all the materials. This is a bad idea. It's a really clear, rational thought. And nothing wrong with the rational mind, nothing wrong with the animal mind. But my teacher looked at me. And because he was in the flow of the divine mind, which is intuitive, which is radically intelligent. And by radically intelligent, I mean there's a different kind of intelligence than with, say, the human rational mind. Human rational mind will make like a pros and cons list, will survey a situation, say, this looks good, this doesn't look good, this will be easy or it'll be difficult. And, excuse me, my teacher didn't care if it was easy or difficult. What he cared about was what was the highest. What was the highest? So he had surrendered his rational mind, because his rational mind knew the same thing my rational mind knew. This was a bad place to build a temple. But, the intelligence of God surpasses all human intelligence. The intelligence of God, the intelligence of divine mind, surpasses human intelligence. It's nice when they're in alignment, when all of them are in alignment. But oftentimes God will challenge us and make us do something difficult. You know, I think God did the same thing with St. Francis. Said, hey, you're going to build a church here. Francis said, God, I don't know how. God said, you're going to build a church here. So he said, okay. And so it's this surrendering into something greater. And so my teacher had surrendered into something greater. And it was a hell of a lot more work, you know, to build a temple up, you know, higher up the mountain, deep in the woods. But then there was this grace there, this absolute divinity there, this presence that we were blessed with. And yeah, in the end, it was absolutely worth it. Absolutely. You know, if I look at my day today in the snow, when I was, you know, digging the Jeep out of the snow, and I had some of my body under the Jeep, and I had two jacks that were failing. One just actually broke to pieces, which is, you know, sometimes when it gets cold, metal just like will just snap, you know, even steel. And so my animal mind came forward. You know, I was like really hustling because I didn't want to be crushed or be pinned under the car, you know. And you know, when I got the tire free, the Jeep was still being supported by two jacks that were faulty. And so I just rushed to town. I was going, you know, drove really fast because I wanted to go down there, drop off the tire, get it fixed, buy a new jack, come back real quick before the, you know, before the jacks failed more, and I found the Jeep in a worse situation. And so, you know, I had this list of things that I was supposed to get while I was at the store. But because I was rushing and because I was still, you know, had some of that like adrenaline moving in my system, I went to the store. I did get the jack. The tire, they weren't able to fix it right away because, you know, everyone and their brothers getting new tires put on their car when you have 6 feet of snow. And so, you know, I quickly rushed back up the hill. And my wife looked at me. She said, did you get the stuff on the list? I was like, oh no, I didn't. I was just rushing. I was just panicking. Could have easily got it. In fact, I could have killed some time and you know, stayed there and wait for the tire to get fixed. But anyways, you know, I just made a split decision to rush up with the new jack. And so that's animal mind. I wasn't accessing my rational mind. Yeah, but later in the day, you know, it took like literally like 8 hours to change a tire that normally would take me a half hour. But about 8 hours later, you know, as I was working on the car again, you know, I caught a glimpse of the sunset as the, you know, the sun was setting. There was this beautiful pink color. You know, sometimes the sky gets real pretty at sunset for us in Colorado when the rays of the sun are kind of bouncing off the snow. And I just felt this holy presence of divine mind. And I thought, oh yes, divine mind. You know, so when we're awake in the world, it doesn't mean that life's not still difficult or challenging things stop happening. You know, like I said, we got 6 feet of snow. We already had like 3 feet of snow. And so it all does kind of compact, you know. So, you know, we're driving in tunnels here in Colorado right now because the snow's piled up so high. But yeah, we got a ton of snow, been shoveling nonstop. Our heater broke, you know, the furnace broke. Still get a flat tire. When you trying to fix the flat tire, your tools can break. Your kids can give you hell. You know, life can still be difficult. But when we step, out of animal mind into rational mind, that's a step forward. When we take one more step in consciousness into divine mind, our life can radically change. Our experience, our inner experience, can radically change, even if the outer experience isn't going so well. And so let me just speak about higher mind. So, I said, you literally take like this elevator, a lot of brain scientists call it this, like an elevator, out of your animal mind, when you notice like that adrenaline and the, that fight or flight response, or fight, flight, or freeze response. So you step out of that into your rational mind. And then from this place, the next step is more like a surrender. It's just opening. Oftentimes it helps, to somatically just start breathing more deeply, more fully, relaxing the body. That actually helps the animal mind calm down, even helps the rational mind to know that it's okay to trust, to let go, or to try something different. Because the animal mind does fight or flight or freeze. The rational mind oftentimes works through a sense of control. Like that's where it holds on to. Like, I have to be in control. I have to figure this out. I have to be the one who does this. We all have that kind of mind, the strong will, whatever it is. But if we can just breathe and surrender and say, well, let's see what God can do. Let's see what God can do. My good friend Catherine in Canada, she's also had a tough week and has asked for prayers. And so when we ask for prayers, this is asking for higher mind, this higher presence, this higher love to work through us, to move through us, to live through us. So together, we can call upon this presence. God, will you bless Catherine? Will you bless her family? Will you bring greater harmony and light and love? And so we invite this flow of divinity into her life, into her family. In fact, while we are praying, God, we invite your presence into our life, into our family. Bring a greater sense of harmony and love and healing to all of us. Bring a greater love and harmony and healing to this planet. Help us humans to live in greater harmony with Mother Earth and with our brothers and sisters here. And so when we give ourselves permission just to close our eyes, to let go of how we think life should be, if we give ourselves permission to let go of the right answer, and instead be led by something greater. My teacher knew the right answer was to build the temple, down where the ground was at least semi-flat, where there was a road, where there was access. But he surrendered his rational mind to the divine mind, and she delivered. Sometimes it's easier when we listen to God. Sometimes it's more difficult in the short term. It's never going to be more difficult in the long term when you listen to higher mind. But it may be more difficult short term, because sometimes higher mind will tell you, I need to speak up for myself. I need to, have a little Kali energy, make a little ruckus. But I'm walking in the direction of truth. And so then eventually life becomes easier after God asks you to do something difficult, Sometimes it becomes easier that moment. Sometimes it becomes easier 3 years later. But part of stepping into a higher mind is letting go of your thought of time, like how long is this going to take? You know, with a rational mind, oftentimes we think like real short term, like instant satisfaction. You know, especially with our lower emotional mind and animal mind, it's instant satisfaction or defensiveness. But sometimes it's very wise just to bite your tongue and just leave the situation instead of creating a greater mess than there needs to be, than there already is. You know, and so it's the willingness to surrender, basically that which is lower. And listen, start to listen for a voice of that which is higher. And if you have any question about, you know, what God sounds like, she will not come with trumpets and a heavenly sound. You know, that's rare. That's normally stuff that's written about in myths. What the voice of God normally sounds like is actually the voice of your heart. It's quiet, gentle, still, soft, yet powerful. So oftentimes divine mind is the quietest voice within you. The beautiful thing about it is the more you listen to this quiet, still voice within, eventually all those competing voices in your head fall away. Like the internal critic, the judge, the saboteur, the, you know, wounded orphan or whatever it is within you. Those voices begin to fall away the more you listen to this divine mind. The more you listen to this divine mind. You know, the kid who's having a tantrum oftentimes begins to relax. The reason being is because if there's a place within you, say, that's really angry and really upset, and you're believing all your thoughts, you know, you can like make yourself crazy real quick or get yourself all worked up, raise your blood pressure, do all kinds of, you know, fun things in your consciousness. But if you give yourself permission to call upon something greater, what happens is eventually that inner child, the one who's freaking out, instead of looking to your ego for direction, that inner child starts to look to God, to your true heart, to your higher mind. And it starts to trust, it starts to relax because it realizes, oh, there's someone sane here. Someone who actually sees me, hears me, and can love me. Someone who can help me heal. And so that mind may begin to relax a little bit for the soul's sake that there's a sane adult in the room. And so oftentimes it's through this work that we become much quieter inside. The competing voices, you know, really start to dissolve. And then we're just left with, you know, what's here? What's here? What's truly here? And so anyways, got a lot of questions here, and let's see if I can get to them here. This one's from Lisa. Craig, how does one discern when there's internally a lot of agitation and anxiety in the chest and the solar plexus? If it is a warning not to proceed in a direction, or if it's just rolling mental stories produced by the state of tension because of practicing them so long and not catching them as soon as they started to arise. Yeah, Lisa, if there's anxiety within you, I encourage you to stop, to take deep, full breaths, and ask the anxiety, what do you need? You know, what what do you truly need? You know, sometimes we can ask, like, what do you want? And the anxiety will tell us, like, I want to go home. I want to get the hell out of here. But then if you ask again, what do you truly need? I need to calm down. I need to relax. I'm just feeling nervous because I'm afraid so-and-so is going to be, at the party. Okay. So what do I really need? I need to breathe. I need to relax. I need to get grounded. So I'm going to encourage you to meet the anxiety with love first. Buried underneath the anxiety is the truth. So oftentimes anxiety will cover up divine mind. When we are panicking, our panic is often telling us to run. But if you just take a deep breath, maybe 100 deep breaths sometimes, and just feel into your heart, like, what do I really need? It may be true that, yeah, I need to go home. I need to relax more. I need some alone time. That's what I truly need. Or it may be that your heart tells you, I need to speak up and tell this person who's harassing me all the time that, they need to knock it off. They need to knock it off. And so I'm going to encourage you to breathe deeply into the anxiety. Meet it with love. And what that means is just breathing. I'm feeling, I'm acknowledging that there's pain here. And then ask, like, what do you want? I want to run. Okay. But what do you truly need? I need to relax. I need just to spend 5 minutes just relaxing my body. And then once you fully relax, what you'll find is your heart will be open. Your intuitive intelligence, your divine mind will be present. And it will tell you how to proceed. It's okay. Let's go inside. Yeah, it's okay. I can do this. Or whatever it is. It'll tell you the truth. And so I encourage you to work with it this way. The only time our anxiety is really going to be a warning not to proceed is if we are in actually a dangerous situation. And if that's the case, yeah, listen. If there's danger, listen. Don't go there. Don't go there. If you ignore danger, like true physical harm, what you do is you start to, you teach your body that you are an untrustworthy person, that it can't trust you. Like when we repeat the same romantic relationships again and again, like the terrible ones, we're teaching our inner child, she can't trust the adult here, the adult who keeps getting in these terrible relationships. And so she will continue to, she'll get stuck in panic. By she, I mean the inner child. She'll get stuck in a state of panic or anxiety. Like people who have generalized anxiety disorder, oftentimes they've had a traumatic life and they didn't listen to their gut. When their gut was saying, don't go in there. These people are not your friends. If you're like, oh no, I'm just going to go see again and, because I'm lonely or, whatever it is. If we keep, not following our gut, if we ignore our gut, our body is going to respond with, something like, depression or generalized anxiety disorder. Depression oftentimes is when we're very successful at repressing our pain. Depression comes forward because we spend so much mental and emotional energy repressing what's within us. So our body becomes exhausted and literally depressed. So that's a great question, Lisa. Thanks for asking. Okay. So I'm going to ask that everyone just give me a minute here, because someone sent me a really long email. So and I'm just going to read through it. But it's best, when you send me an email, just to have a very clear, concise question. It's actually a wonderful spiritual practice, to have a very clear, concise question. Okay, so this person, I believe it's Paul, is writing me a question about desire. He's saying basically he notices that desire is oftentimes a transient state, meaning it comes and goes. That's one of the great things our ego does, is always giving us a new desire. And it thinks that, well, if I get this, then I will be happy. And Mr. Paul is realizing that that's not true, that we don't necessarily become happy, each time we get, some more material goods of some sort. At my home, after my father died, my mom said, looked at us three boys and like, you guys want any of this stuff? And I said, oh yeah, like it'd be great to have some of Dad's stuff, more for sentimental reasons. And so I rented a trailer and brought, a bunch of stuff back to my home in Colorado, and I basically ended up with way too much stuff. One of the nice things I got out of the deal was a snowblower, which is really useful in this moment. But as far as, all his old t-shirts and, random stuff from the garage, I didn't need it. And what I realized is, it doesn't bring me any satisfaction. In fact, I'm finding it dissatisfying because I'm tripping over so much of it, because we have no place to put the stuff. But what Paul is asking is, how does one approach, the cessation of desire and enjoy and be grateful for what one already has? This, my friend, Paul, in order to be happy, is basically what your question is you have to be in direct contact, direct relationship with your heart. With your heart. I was speaking with someone the other day about peace, and excuse me, many people can experience peace on the spiritual path. They can feel spaciousness and emptiness, but peace can actually be very boring. I hate to say it, if it's not connected with your heart. So in order to truly be happy, your heart must be open. And so the way peace experiences oneness is through like vastness and feeling very spread out, empty, free. Almost like there's nobody here. So there's like a general sense of, I'll call it okayness with life. But desire is the realm of the heart. Lower level desire, like emotional desire, is, yes, like Paul's describing, it's transient. But when you come into the heart, like when you let go of emotional desire, the chasing after, being attached to this thing and that thing, and you have a relationship with your heart, where you know yourself as your heart, you'll discover what the Buddha called your original goodness. That what you are is, the Buddha called it basic goodness. That you are good. Your essence is good. It's vibrating with literally the energy of goodness. I'll say that differently. It's vibrating with the energy of joy, of joy. And so, you know, in order to be in touch with true happiness, you have to be in touch with the heart. You have to be in love with yourself. You have to know yourself fully and deeply. You know, I was meeting with a good friend of mine this week, and I have deep and profound respect for him. He is a very silent being. He has silence down to a T. He's like walking silence. And I was speaking to him about coming more fully into his heart and discovering the joy of his being. In his heart, I felt this quiet sadness because he had emotional pain there. And so, you know, so many of us, when we come into our heart, we find just old stuffed emotions. Because for so many of us, our heart is simply a dumping ground for old emotions, or it's a chasing ground. By that, I mean, it's a place for desire where it's just like, oh, I want this and I want that, and this is going to make me happy. You know, if I eat some more cake or whatever it is that people chase. You know, if I get a new car, for me, it's a new motorcycle. You know, it's like, motorcycle doesn't make me happy. Do I enjoy riding a motorcycle? Yeah. I also enjoy sitting in my yard doing nothing. And I enjoy it because my heart is open and radiating with light. And keep in mind, my heart is not special. Your heart is radiating with light as well. But for some of us, our heart is covered in pain. And so to have desire truly cease, you know, that's one of the words for nirvana. Basically, nirvana means cessation. You know, for desire to truly cease, or to cease mostly, and desire is never supposed to fully cease in an evolutionary world, by the way, so just keep that in mind. You know, part of the aspect of God is always growing and expressing herself in greater and greater ways. But part of, like, you know, emotional desire ceasing, a big part of it is when you fall in love with your heart, Paul. When you discover this endless well of love in your heart. And so then you can have peace, like, you know, vast, spacious peace that's flooded with love, flooded with radiance, flooded with light, flooded with divine intimacy. Divine intimacy. Like this absolute intimacy. On a non-dual level, this intimacy, it feels as if you are everything. You are life. So I don't need to chase after an aspect of myself. You know, occasionally on my YouTube like stream, and by that I mean on my like personal like clickable YouTube. When I type in YouTube on my computer, it gives me like different choices of videos to look at or listen to. And, you know, sometimes I like just to put on some music, you know, and listen to a little Grateful Dead. And like when I listen to Grateful Dead, my heart just feels overwhelmingly in love with the band, with the music, with the concert. It feels as if I am, you know, at that show, whatever it is, 12/31, 1989, that I am there. I'm fully with it. It feels as if there's no distance between me and the great Jerry Garcia, that the music is playing inside of me and I am the music. I am the music. It's wondrous to fall in love, this deeply. When I go outside and see how huge the sky is, I feel as if I am the sky. This is what cessation of desire is like. It's becoming one with everything in the most intimate way. The way the Buddha described the mind is sky-like, vast, empty, free. Literally, my mind feels sky-like. And so your desire will always be present until you realize an incredible truth, an incredible intimacy with all of life, Paul. And the desire for something more will literally haunt you. Drive some people crazy, always wanting more. Until you start to realize that you're tripping over the stuff that you want, that you buy, that you get. I don't want any more. I am more. I'm so more. I'm so overwhelmed with myself that you don't need any more. You don't need any more. The desire stops arising. And so this is how cessation happens, my friend. Unfortunately, most people on the path, they try to do a top-down approach. They try to make themselves not want. Try to be like a good little monk or good little nun. If you repress desire, your ego will revolt. If you fall in love with yourself, the depth of your heart, the radiance of your heart, this well, it's literally like an overflowing well of love is what your heart is. If you fall in love with that, desire seems silly. Silly. Doesn't even make sense. If you're not in contact with that, you'll be haunted by a new shiny sports car, new girlfriend, new partner, new gadgets, or whatever it is that people want. Whatever people want. Okay, my friend. Let's see. His question goes on, but I'll just give me a moment here just to read a little bit. Craig, the other matter that would be interesting. The other matter I would be interested in hearing now is letting go. He feels that there's something within himself that he cannot seem to surrender. I seem to hold on to an awful lot about myself as a person. Desires, situations, people. It's almost like I seem reluctant to truly relinquish something. But I've yet to get to the core of the situation. There's lots of personality traits I hide behind, which seem to serve my clinging onto them. Yeah, my friend, the big reason we hold on to things is because of fear. Oftentimes it's we're afraid to be naked. We're afraid of being alone. We're afraid of suffering more. And so in order to truly let go, you have to trust. You have to trust that letting go is an upgrade. I can't, say this enough. When you let go, you are letting go of something lesser and receiving something greater. This is why I always think it's so helpful to have a relationship with God. And when you have a relationship with God, basically you're saying, God, I'm a human and I want to become more divine. I want to step more fully into my divinity. Will you help me? And let's just think about what being human is. Oftentimes it's hard, it's difficult, it's painful, it's confusing, it's complicated, it's messy. We have multiple voices arguing in our head. We are arguing with the past, arguing with the future. I mean, it's, everyone knows this experience. What does it mean to let go of mind? Let go of an argument and step into vast, spacious freedom. Or letting go of desire and stepping into love and radical intimacy. It's always an upgrade when you let go. It's always an upgrade. The ego will tell you it's, you're going to lose something. Here's a little bit of a wisdom here. Anything that's good within your personality or your humanity, you keep that. Okay, you keep that. Anything that is unnecessary or unhelpful or just that holds you back, that's what you lose. You lose dead weight and you gain love, light, compassion, freedom. And so if there is intense struggle in letting go, it is often because your ego doesn't know that it can trust. And one of the most helpful things you can literally do to your body to help yourself trust and let go is to self-soothe. Deep, full belly breaths, holding your heart, holding your belly, relaxing the body. The more you relax your body, the easier it is to let go. The easier it is to let go. Yoga is incredibly helpful in helping you let go of 10,000 pounds of karmic pain from the past. Yoga puts your physical body, like, your amygdala, at ease. If your animal mind is amped up, you will not let go. If you think there's something to fear, you won't let go. But if you calm your physical body, it's much, much easier to let go. To let go. Okay, there's another question here that I'm going to try to get to. So, Paul, if I missed any of your question, feel free to email me again. Any of you who I missed your questions from last week because of all the snow and everything, just email me. And please, in the subject line, write satsang question. That'll just help me scan through my emails. Here's a great question from someone about the fun experience of kundalini awakening. We'll get one of these in here. Craig, I can't seem to disassociate my spiritual practice from the person whose eye contact activated kundalini and my awakening. Should I? If so, and how do I do that? Yes, so this is kind of a fun question. So oftentimes on the path, we might meet a guru, we might meet a teacher. Hell, sometimes kundalini is awoken through actually an intimate encounter with another individual, whether that's physical intimacy or touch, or just like sometimes you see someone and they look at you in a powerful way. Their true nature sees your true nature, and then boom, kundalini is activated. The person goes on to say, they are a stranger, but they are ever present in my mind. I often can feel them with me. And so, it's okay to have reverence or a sense of respect for someone who awoke something beautiful within you. But please don't become attached to them. What they basically awoke in you is they awoke your divinity. What's important is that you focus on your divinity, not on theirs. If you want to grow on the path, you'll focus on your divinity. If you want to play the game of guru worship or putting someone on a pedestal and making yourself less than, focus on them, think about them, dream about them, be desirous of them. But I'm going to encourage you to let go of the catalyst. I'm going to say that person who glanced at you was the catalyst. If they're a stranger, let go of them and focus on the source. The reason this energy woke up in you is because God believes in you. God wants to show you your goddess nature. And so you open to this truth. Make yourself the most important person on the planet Earth. And what I mean by that is your divinity. That may sound narcissistic, but the more you fall in love with your divinity, the more compassionate you will become to yourself first, and then to those around you. Fall in love with yourself. See what this energy is. See what it wants to teach you. See what life is showing you. Let go of the person who glanced at you. They don't own it. It's your nature that's waking up. And so anyways, one last thing here from Bryant. I said I was going to answer this. Craig, on one hand, there are trivial matters compared to awakening to being. At the same time, while we are in forms on earth, to me, part of the challenge is balancing and honoring our human situations as clearly as we can currently see them. Bryant, your human life and your divine life, one life. The path of awakening and the path of being compassionate and loving presence, one path. The path of being wise and truthful and honest, the path of, meditation, one path. Give yourself fully to life. Give yourself fully to your divinity. Give yourself fully to that which is higher. When you choose that which is higher, all the human stuff works itself out. Choosing that which is higher doesn't mean you ignore your humanity. It means you respond with love and wisdom. Love and wisdom. If you want to progress on the spiritual path, the quickest way to do so is to respond with love and wisdom. I want to thank you all so much for joining me. I know I went a couple minutes over. Thanks for being a part of this. I want to say hello to everyone. Tree and Lisa and Jay and Dawn and Shauna and Thane and Rhonda, Suzanne, Ivy, Andrea, Carlos, David, Megan. Hi, Megan in Portland. Jenny, Timothy. Thank you all for tuning in. My heart is with you. If you want to come meditate Wednesday night, it costs a small donation. Any donation will do. Details are on my website. Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. And if not, I'll see you back here next Sunday. May peace and love be with you all. Take good care. Good night.